I'll call the House Education Finance Committee to order. Good morning, everyone. We have a lot of testifiers today that we want to get to. What the plan is that we are going to hear Representative Feist, House File 44, but we did not get the fiscal note in time for today. So we're going to have the hearing, we're going to have all the testimony, and we're going to lay the bill over and pick it back up again next week for amendments. And I talked with Lead Cretia about that, and then we'll get to the vote on it next week. And then we're going to move into Representative Berg's bill, which the intention is to lay that over for possible inclusion in the education finance bill. That one didn't need a fiscal note because it has a set appropriation in the bill. So with that, members, we'll get to our first bill. If Representative Feist wants to, actually, first, let's do minutes. Vice Chair Clardy, have you had a chance to look at the minutes from January 17th?
I have. I'd like to move the minutes. There is one technical correction.
We'll move the minutes with the technical correction of, just checking here, sorry. Okay, there is just a technical spelling correction that was caught. A letter D that needs to be a B. Oh,
Great. So we're adding a D.
okay, so we're adding D. Any other questions on the minutes? Representative Cretia?
Not on the minutes, just.
Okay. With that, members, with Vice Chair Clardy moving the minutes for January 17th, all those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. The minutes are adopted. Representative Cretia.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the conversation we had about your path of the bill. Just a couple questions. I want to just make sure I'm being respectful of your time. We have two bills, and then we have an overview. And House 44 will be laid over because we don't have the fiscal. Here's my question. How much time are you looking for? And then, because it's going to get laid over, are you looking at that next hearing that we'll have discussion as well? We're just trying to manage the questions we have, and I want to be respectful of what you're trying to accomplish.
Thank you, Representative Cretia. Today, I think we, between the testifiers and everyone, we have about 40 minutes total, do you think? 40 to 45. So please make sure that direct the questions to the testifiers that are here today, and then we'll save more of the discussion on the amendments for next week, if that's okay.
And Madam Chair, and just so I'm clear, so if there's further questions, not that we're trying to run the clock out, but if there are, you would be open to those. We wouldn't just be moving the bill once we have the fiscal note.
Yes, we'll give it some time for questions next week too when we move the fiscal note.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
More the questions more in discussion around the fiscal note. So we'll try to give it a full hearing today if possible, but we also want to mind the clock as well. All right, with that, Representative Feist, please introduce yourself for the record and proceed. Actually, we have to do a motion. Well, you can just move. Yeah, I'll just move House, boy, I am rusty. I'll move House File 44 before the committee for discussion. Representative Feist.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I am Sandra Feist. I represent District 39B, and I am excited to be here today to present the menstrual equity bill to this committee. Just as a preliminary note, I just want to mention that this bill is fun. Not all legislation is fun and collaborative and exciting, although I love all my bills equally. But I just want to mention that just working with students has been really special, and I want to thank ELIF, who I'll talk about in a minute, as well as the National Council of Jewish Women Minnesota, who have been really active around period poverty and have really been a great collaborator on this bill. This issue of period poverty came to my attention because Elif, a high school student who will introduce herself in a moment, emailed me articles and data and anecdotes talking about the impact of period poverty on students' ability to really get a full education in Minnesota. She inspired me and educated me, and I decided that we needed to get this done. Period poverty is a widespread issue that directly impacts students' ability to get a full education. 1 out of every 10 menstruating youth miss school because their menstrual cycle, or during their menstrual cycle, due to a lack of access to menstrual products and resources. This absenteeism impacts educational attainment directly and indirectly through its correlation with increased depression and anxiety. This bill requires that schools provide period products in bathrooms for students grades 4 through 12 and is funded through an increase of $2 per pupil in the operating capital revenue. And I have a fancy chart that Tim Strom shared with me, so if people have more specific questions about that, we can definitely talk about how we came to that number. I'd like to direct your attention to some quotes from materials submitted by students and school nurses, youth workers in your materials today. One youth worker talked about menstrual products being like soap and toilet paper to students. A rural educator talked about the impact of period poverty on piling up absences. Multiple statements in your materials today talked about period products as a necessity. Multiple personal stories are included in your materials about their students talking about themselves, their friends, and their relatives. One student talked about being able to feel comfortable and focused when they had access to period products. Another student talked about how this relieves stress. One student talked about how they feel safer, cared for, and respected when they were provided these products that they needed in order to learn. School nurses talked about students being stranded without these products, about how providing these products is educational in the sense that we are informing students about the natural bodily functions and their health needs. They talked about how it keeps kids in school and that period products are basic health supplies. This is the Education Finance Committee, so I will end with the point that this is a wise investment. Since helping students who regularly miss school catch up is more complicated and expensive than proactively ensuring that they don't miss class due to period poverty. Notably, the cost impacts schools' ability to serve all students. Providing these products openly has the added benefit of normalizing conversations around periods to reduce the shame and stigma attached to this normal bodily function that impacts a full half of the human population. We ensure that students have toilet paper, paper towels, soap, and Band-Aids. We should ensure that students have period products as well. And I will turn it to my testifiers.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members of the committee, for giving me this opportunity to speak today. My name is Elif Öztürk, and I'm a junior at Hopkins High School. The first time that I truly became aware of the toll that a period takes on a young girl in school was during my 8th grade. Each and every day that I went to the girls' bathroom, I would hear whispers asking friends for products. I could feel the heightened stress caused by that time of the month. What truly frustrated me, though, was the fact that I had friends who didn't just forget their products, but couldn't afford them in the first place. I had friends whose parents couldn't give them access to this luxury product. I had friends who decided to just skip school during that time because we cannot learn when we are leaking. I thought to myself, how is this fair? How do we expect our students to carry this burden on them throughout the school day and still perform well? My number one priority should be to learn, not to find a pad. So I can no longer be complacent with this injustice. During the fall of my 9th grade, I emailed various representatives, hoping they too would see my perspective on this. I received an excited response from Representative Feist and began working with her. Later, we teamed with NCJW and decided on the language. This is a low-cost effort that would help so many lives from having to miss out on their right to an education. Lives like mine, lives like your children, and lives like your grandchildren. Tampons and pads aren't optional. They are necessities. They hold the same purpose as toilet paper, which is always free for use. Yet these products are not so readily available within the walls of our schools. Why is that when they make the difference between a normal day and a traumatic one? Period poverty within schools is impeding on our students' education and the right to be respected as human beings. It is time to finally provide this one product that will allow us to peacefully go through the school day. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have Tori Robarge, and then on deck, Evelyn Gore. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Tori Robarge. Myself and Evelyn Gore, as you just heard, were both part of a group of student advocates at Egan High School. As a part of our research for our school, we wrote and administered a menstruation-based survey, and we presented that to our student body at Egan High School. We found overwhelming support for the addition of free products. When asked if there had ever been a time when they didn't have access to a product, 195 students offered us with answers. 66% said that they didn't want to miss class by going to the nurse's office. 35% said that their teacher wouldn't let them go. 18% said that they did not have the money to give to the nurse, who was paying out of pocket for the products. 43% said that they were too scared or too embarrassed to go and talk to the nurse personally. Almost 1 in 10 Americans have missed school due to a lack of period products. Hundreds of thousands of people are missing out on critical opportunities, like an equal, well-deserved education. We expect that due to these boxes, we will see an increase in attendance. People that don't regularly have access to these products at home don't have to be fearful of being unclean or insecure about a lack of hygiene that's out of their control. By providing these products inside of the bathrooms, we are not only keeping students in the building, we are keeping them in their seats. Period poverty is not a political issue. It is not a way to impose power over school districts or to question their ability to make their own decisions. Period poverty is a health issue and it is an equity issue. Once more, I am urging you to understand the fact that the students of this state will be immeasurably grateful for the decision that you've made with them in mind. While student advocacy is an incredibly vital part of the education system, it should be noted that every single kid in our school should have the same ultimate goal: to learn. What is it that we're teaching these menstruating students when we deny them the right to accessible and necessary hygiene tools? Do they learn that their non-menstruating counterparts have the ability to focus solely on the present, never wondering how the state of the restroom could affect the rest of their day? Do we teach them that fighting tirelessly for their own emotional and physical well-being is a great chance to practice their public speaking, or that it's an amazing resume builder? Or do we show them that at the end of the day, there will always be another obstacle in the way to their path for an equitable education? These students will be grateful not only for access to products, not only for the chance to maintain an equal education with their peers, but also for the work that is being done to normalize an uncontrollable bodily function. They will take a moment to breathe because that's one less thing they need to worry about in the swirl of madness that is adolescence. Period poverty is not something that can be disagreed with. Period poverty is indisputable and your students need you.
Thank you. And members, we're going to have our first remote testimony with Evelyn Gore.
Hi, thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Evelyn Gore, and I graduated last year from Egan High School as the leaders who worked to end period poverty in District 196. The District 196 Period Poverty Project initially started out through an Honors 10 speech class, where we were given the task to present a group speech about a topic that we were passionate about. In an all-female group, we found common ground with the issue of period poverty. As we spent more time researching, our passion grew. Within minutes, we were emailing our superintendent, Mary Krieger, and inviting her to come and watch our class presentation. After partnering up with our Women's Empowerment Club, speaking at several school board meetings, and surveying our own school body, District 196 awarded us a $10,000 grant. This grant tangibly allowed us to actually make a difference. Today in District 196, you can find free tampons and pads in the gender-neutral, women's, and at least one men's bathroom for every school. While our story is seen as a success story, this equity needs to be brought to the rest of the students of Minnesota. It's not fair to assume that other districts can do what District 196 has done. My district is very fortunate to have the resources that other areas of the state do not have. And frankly, even if that wasn't the case, this shouldn't have been something that I even had to do. Although I am glad we started this period poverty project and thankful for all of our supporters, as a teenager in high school, this isn't something that I should have had to fight for in the first place. And that is why this district mandate is so important. When I first started this project, I was 15, and as a 15-year-old, I shouldn't have had to worry about solving period poverty. As a 15-year-old, I shouldn't be worried about my next chemistry exam or whether or not my friends were in the same lunch as me, not whether or not the world around me cares enough about students like me to provide these basic human needs. So I ask you to use my period poverty project not as an example of what other districts should do, but instead as an example of how providing free menstrual products for students is crucial in creating the safe learning environment that we so often claim to create. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have another remote testifier, Marit Matson, and then Kathleen Molly. Marit, could you please state your name for the record and proceed?
Thank you, Madam Chair and committee members. My name is Marit Matson, and I'm 14 years old. I'm a student at Mankato East High School, and I present this statement in support of HF 44, which aims to provide access to free menstrual products in Minnesota school bathrooms. Providing free period products would remove unnecessary stress from students' everyday lives. Every menstruating individual knows what it's like to be caught off guard without the supplies you need, but this does not need to be the reality in our schools. We can provide students with the products they need for a safer, more equitable learning experience. Nobody deserves to worry whether or not they will have access or be able to afford basic hygiene products while they're at school. Right now, it is up to students to help provide for themselves and each other. I'm currently working with a group of other students in my district to plan a period product drive across our schools to make sure that every student has access to the products they need, no matter their financial standing. I'm fortunate enough that this is not a concern for me, but many people are not, and access to period products should not be based on the good fortune of the student. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, Kathleen Molly, another remote testifier. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning and thank you. Chair Cheryl Joachim and members of the House Finance Policy Committee. My name is Kathleen Molly and I'm a licensed school nurse right here in St. Paul at Eastham Middle School. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to briefly speak with you today about an important health issue that impacts half of our student population. This statement is in support of HF 44, which would provide access to menstrual products in Minnesota school bathrooms. As a middle school nurse, I assist several students daily that are unexpectedly in need of menstrual supplies. As you can imagine, this is a humiliating experience for my 6th to 8th grade students. In my office, I seek donations and also purchase menstrual supplies to attempt to supply the 300 plus students for when they are in need. The donations and my personal funds are limited and the sustainability is uncertain. Because of financial barriers, some of my students are unable to attend school due to lack of menstrual supplies. This is a very unfortunate and inequitable situation that leads to poor academic outcomes. On the bright side, the menstrual inequity issue can be easily fixed. By providing free menstrual supplies in school restrooms across the state, humiliating situations will be avoided and absenteeism will be decreased. Menstrual supplies are a basic hygienic necessity and should be as readily available to students as toilet paper, paper towels, or hand soap. It's time to move forward with an equitable plan for all students. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your testimony. Next up, we have Dana Clausen. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Madam Chair and members of the committee, thank you for this opportunity to speak to you. My name is Dana Clausen. I live in Farwell, Minnesota, which is near Alexandria. I'm a retired Minnesota educator. For my entire career in education, I've worked in greater Minnesota school districts. I started as a full-time study hall supervisor. I've been a classroom teacher, a program coordinator, and a curriculum director. I'm here to voice my support for providing access to free menstrual products in Minnesota school bathrooms. In this state, we value education. We want all of our students to reach their full potential. The conversations I have with my son and my niece, who are both teachers, often come to a sadly familiar conclusion. We can't teach a student who isn't there. A student should not be forced to stay home from school for multiple days every 4 weeks because her family cannot afford to buy menstrual products for her and she cannot afford them for herself. Period poverty disrupts a student's learning. It causes absences to pile up month after month, negatively impacting a girl's ability to succeed. We can change that by providing simple necessities that are no different from toilet paper or paper towels. We can give our female students period security, allowing them to concentrate on their studies instead of worrying about their menstrual cycles. I ask that you support providing access to free menstrual products in school bathrooms. And I want to thank you for keeping the well-being of our students in mind as you do your important work. Thank you.
Thank you for the testimony and thank you, our staff that did a great job doing our remote testimony for the first time, looking forward to more of that later so we can hear from folks all around the state. So next up, we go back to our in-person testimony with Carolyn Davrill. Sorry, I should have given you a heads up. Please, when you sit down, state your name for the record and proceed.
I'm a school nurse. I don't need any heads up. I just take it as it comes. My name is Carlin Diavro. I usually go by Kari. And I am a licensed school nurse at South Education Center. It's part of Intermediate 287. I am asking for your support for the House File 0044 to access menstrual products for Minnesota kids Statistics give you information. Stories give you empathy. Action gives respect, justice. For girls under the age of 18 in the United States, 20% of our middle school and high school age students report lack of resources for feminine hygiene products. That means, although math has never been my strong suit, approximately 20 out of 100 girls in school hallways could miss 3 to 7 days each month from school just because they happen to have body parts called ovaries and uteruses. Do you know how much nurse joy it gives me to be able to say these things in front of you? Let's just clear the stigma. Speaking of stigma, there's a stigma against those that identify as female, and it also harms our young men. What message do we give our young men, our boys, our 50% of our future leaders, around topics called respect, consent, human value, human dignity, if basic care items are withheld from 50%, half of their classmates? What message are we giving them? It's not just a female issue. It's a human issue. In order to understand, you must hear stories. I have lots of stories. Every month, kids with good attendance will noticeably be absent from my school. I often will see their friend and say, "Hey, where's so-and-so?" They come back, and then I hear truths, poverty truths, about lack of affordable feminine supplies, housing insecurity, lack of the ability to pay for laundry, to go to the laundromat, transportation, inability to wash soiled clothes. There's many, many barriers when it comes to this issue. Kids will sneak into my office and ask for feminine supplies. They often will leave in my bathroom soiled toilet paper, rolled up socks, younger siblings' pull-ups, younger siblings' diapers, anything that's covered by WIC. It's in my garbage can, and that's what they're using to come to school. Working with teens from cultures where there is anything that is remotely deemed as sexual is a complete taboo. Many of them don't even have the language when they come to me to ask. They pause, and their eyes are downcast, kind of move their feet around, and I know what they need. They're shamed even to ask for a basic need health necessity. They've received the message not only from home, but also from our schools, that they are less than. They are vulnerable to isolation. They are vulnerable to someone's scorn. For my unique learners, my special education students, financial hardship is brought on by their many, many increased care needs. Often one parent or guardian will be needing to live at home, to be at home, to manage their care and all of their medical necessities. That means financial hardship is a big concern for my special needs students and their families. For my immigrant families, they live in extended family groups. Number one is a protection, but also for financial survival. My students and their families will work nights, weekends, holidays, third jobs to pay for rent. There's no money for the extras. For my kids who are homeless and highly mobile, getting access to a washer and dryer in my office is sometimes the only reason they do come to school. They often will hide behind my desk under a blanket, eating a granola bar, waiting for their clothes to dry. The goal is always to get them to algebra. We stock toilet paper in public bathrooms because, as a child of a forever first grade teacher, favorite book, everyone poops. Last time I checked. But last time I checked, most of you who identify as male are not carrying around an extra roll of toilet paper in case it's not stocked when you need it. You don't have to make sure you have a bag that it fits into, that you can subtly hide it somewhere. Those of you who identify as female more than likely have done the similar thing with feminine hygiene supplies and will pass it off to a friend when needed. Public health dictates we wash our hands before we return to work, but we never stock soap, we never stock paper towels. A normal body function that affects half the school is considered a luxury. For kids to learn, trauma-informed practices states a child must be safe as well to identify and feel like they are a valued member of their school community. For students who are born genetically female, part of safety is providing for their basic body needs. We need to raise our girls to feel empowered while also raising both genders to respect each other in all their beautiful forms. Stocking supplies in a bathroom is a small gesture, but it's the message that is important. It's the message that they are valued. It is the message that their bodies are respected. It is the message that we want them in our classrooms. We want them to be learning. We claim them and we value them at school. The poet Amanda Gorman, a highly intelligent young voice, just like those other voices you are hearing today, says, "A quiet life isn't always peace. What has always been the norms and notations of what just isn't always justice." Stock the bathrooms. Put action behind your words. Being female should not be a barrier to an education. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony. Members, public had a chance to sign up for testimony as well, and we have 3 folks on that list. We have Kalia Pringle, Noura Mohammed, and Halima Abdullah. So why don't we start with Kalia Pringle? Please come up to the stand and please come up to testify and state your name for the record. And then if the other 2 want to be ready to go too, that would be great. Am I seeing Kalia? Not seeing Kalia. So next up, we have Noura Mohammed. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Hello, my name is Noura Mohammed, and I am a student at Osseo Senior High School, and I provide this statement in support of this bill. As a student, I think that one of the saddest things I witness within school is the lack of period products. Other females my age not being able to come to school because they don't have enough resources to get them throughout the day. I am fortunate to witness that other students at my school take initiative, asking other students to bring in products, collecting necessities for our fellow students. And sure, this lasts, a month, considering my school has over 2,000 students and roughly 1,300 students identifying as female as of this year. But what happens when the supply is low? Constantly depending on the donations from other students is risky, and the turnout has immense differences every time. I am in full support of these efforts. However, I don't believe it should stop with the students, which is why I'm here today. We shouldn't spend our day unsure if what we have is enough to get us through the day, or reliant on other students. Resources which within the school should be a necessity. I am here because I want my fellow peers to walk into a restroom with a sense of relief, knowing that no matter what, they are taken care of. I am here, glad to say that I am here, not just on behalf of my school, but for any other female struggling with this very sad reality.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Next up, we have Halima Abdullah. Please come forward, state your name for the record, and then you may proceed.
Hi, my name is Halima Abdullah, and I go to Southwest High School. This is a personal story, and I believe this was about a couple of months ago when an incident happened relating to a lack of period products at my school. I was in the middle of class, and I abruptly had the realization I had gotten my period. I immediately asked to go use the restroom, and as I was walking towards it, I was praying there would be a pad inside, put in there by the kindness of someone's heart, because there are no school-issued period products, nor ones you can purchase. I, of course, found none in there, and I painfully walked awkwardly to the nurse's office across the hall to ask for a pad, and the nurse told me even if they had pads, which they didn't, I would need a special health pass to receive one, and I was nowhere near comfortable asking my male teacher for a pass to get a pad. I had asked about 5 different girls if they had a pad before I received one. My story isn't as nearly as embarrassing or demoralizing as some of my other friends and peers who have had worse incidents relating to lack of period products in the bathroom. If you were to decide to put menstrual products in the bathrooms, so many more students could have less of a negative experience having a period and will allow menstruating students to not have the burden of worrying where they will get their next period product, so they can continue the rest of their day in school in comfort. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Representative Feist, do you have some words before we move to member questions?
Just would love to thank our testifiers. It's so great to hear the voices of young people on all issues, but especially when it comes to what they need in their classrooms to be at their best and be focused on their education.
Thank you, members. We'll move on to questions then. Representative Edelson.
Thank you. Thank you, Representative Feist, and to all your testifiers. I think the last testifier that was up here, I just want to say it was 24 years ago since I was in high school, and I had experiences just like that. And so the fact that we haven't changed the system that's clearly not working for about half of our population is a problem, and I just love that young people have led on this. So I'm really looking forward to supporting the bill and voting for it to pass in both bodies this year.
Thank you. I just want to remind folks, this is when we have our testifiers here, so if you have more detailed questions for any of the testifiers, this would be the time to do it. Representative Altendorf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative, for bringing this bill, and thank you to all of the speakers. My goodness, just what a great experience that you are having to be here speaking today. I just wanted to mention a little bit, since this is the Finance Committee, I'm concerned about the $2 per pupil that we're putting on this bill. And I don't know that we've totally fleshed out that the expenses of the janitors, that there's going to be additional costs. Also, if we're going to, how we're distributing those, that type of different costs. And so really, in this committee, we need to be really digging deep on the finance issue on this. Now, when I've been out in my district and I'm talking to teachers, I'm talking to administrators, one of the concerns that I have heard over and over is that as a state legislature, that we are doing mandates and they're unfunded, that we are adding mandates that is a new burden on the school systems to maintain and to keep these up, but the funding does not be there. So it might be all with good intention, and yet I'm very concerned on the finance of this, that we are not adequately funding the bill as written.
Representative Feist.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Representative, for the question. I agree with you. I'm a small business owner. I think we should make smart investments, and I believe this is one. Interestingly, when we look at charts and kind of tried to game out how much we thought this would cost, it is likely that it'll cost even less than the $2 I should say likely, I'm undermining myself, but basically, we don't know, we calculated it out based on how many students we thought would need these products, how many they would need, how many would be during school hours, during school months. But it is likely that students that are not on free and reduced lunch won't necessarily want to use the generic products. And so we believe that this amount of money is going to cover all of the students who could possibly need these products. And there are a lot of schools across the state of Minnesota that have already done this voluntarily, and they have not found it to be a burden just to have janitors. They're stocking toilet paper, they're stocking, paper towels. This would just be one more thing to throw out. in the bathrooms. And so a lot of schools have done this successfully. They haven't found it to be a burden. And I do believe Tim Strom is a genius. And we worked together. Am I allowed to talk about now? Anyway, but we worked really hard on just kind of trying to do the math to make sure that this is like a smart investment. And like I said, it's not just money out. We are saving a lot of money in terms of just keeping kids in school, making sure they're focused, supported. We're not spending extra dollars trying to catch kids up because they're missing school on a regular basis.
Representative Altidore, follow-up?
Thank you, Representative. Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to reiterate, and it's not that we have a lack of compassion to this, but it is not the government's job, to protect children, to put them in a bubble, and to anticipate every problem that could possibly happen. And so when we're looking right now in the state of Minnesota, and I'm again talking to people in my district, we're very concerned right now of literacy, of scores, and that's really where I would like to see our attention being focused right now. That's a huge concern to me. That's a huge concern to people of my district. And I would really like to see us as a body, as a state legislature, to be focusing, laser focused on how we can bring those scores up and provide the education for our students. So again, thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Representative. I would say yes, and we'll dig in a little bit more. Maybe when we have the fiscal note back, we can have Mr. Strom go over the calculations on how we came to the $2, or Representative Feist can.
Yeah, I apologize if I put Mr. Strom on the,
Yeah.
yeah.
We'll have
But we
Representative Feist
appreciate
do
his
it with Mr. Strom as backup. So next up, we've got Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I have a question for the first virtual testifier, and I'm sorry, I don't remember her name. She had dark, beautiful hair.
Yes, Representative Bennett, it's Evelyn Gore. We can try and see if she's still on. Yes, she is.
Okay. Oh,
She'll come up as soon as she speaks, so go ahead
Okay.
with the question, Representative.
thank you, Madam Chair. So my question, Evelyn, did you say?
Yes.
For Evelyn. Evelyn, could you, first of all, I'm really proud of you for stepping up and advocating for your needs and for the needs of the girls in your school district. And I'm very curious how your district has implemented this. You mentioned it a little bit. I think you said the products were available in the gender-neutral bathrooms, but could you tell me, like, are they in all bathrooms, just the gender-neutral bathrooms, and how that works?
The testifier, Evelyn Gore, go ahead.
Yeah, so we had baskets that had tampons and pads in them, and they were in all of the gender-neutral bathrooms. Our school specifically had, I think, 2 or 3 of them. And then we had baskets in all of the girls' bathrooms, and then we kept 1 basket in one of the men's bathrooms too. Yeah, does that answer your question?
Representative Bennett.
Yes, Madam Chair, thank you. And, it sounds like from what Representative Feist said that many school districts have already done this voluntarily. And I'm sure just like Evelyn's district, they've done it in a way that fits the needs of their district and how they found it works well. So I'm just wondering why the need for the mandate? I understand the need here with girls and this issue, but sounds like a lot of districts are doing this. Why not provide some funding, whatever it is going to be, that's not designated as a mandate, but here's a little extra money. We want districts who aren't doing this to know that this is a need, and let districts figure out how to solve this issue like they have been. So that's my suggestion, but Representative Feist, why the mandate versus just encouraging districts and providing some funding?
Representative Feist.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. And sorry that I ran away. I thought I was done for some reason. Access to period products is a human right, and right now schools are not providing it universally across the board. We also know that schools are struggling with education finance, issues like the special education cross-subsidy deficit, and just in general, there is a great need need for an investment of resources in all aspects of our schools and our kids' education. I agree with you. I do not believe in unfunded mandates. And this issue had been around, but there had been proposals to mandate without providing that extra funding. I believe that that funding is really important, and if I thought that schools would do it without the requirement, then that would be wonderful, and we'd all be happy that we're meeting our students' basic human rights. But that has not been the case, and so I believe that the structure of this bill is important to making sure that schools do always provide these necessities for students.
Thank you. Representative
follow-up?
Bennett, one more follow-up, and then
Okay.
I've got two more people on the list, and then we're going to move on. And,
Thank you.
And then we'll add Representative Krusha at the end before we move on, so that, or after, sorry. It will go Anderson, Krusha, and then Clardy. So.
Thank you. All right. And thank you, Representative Feist, for that. I agree we shouldn't be doing any unfunded mandates, but also I don't think we should be doing a lot of mandates, period, on our schools. It seems really demeaning to our leaders in our local school districts, our superintendents, administrators, school board members, to think that they can't solve this problem on their own if they're made aware of it. I think some of them just aren't made aware of it. Some have these wonderful young women who've stepped up and said, hey, this is a problem, and they've dealt with it. So as a legislature, instead of saying you have to do it and you have to do it this way, I just feel like more and more we need to encourage, come alongside these people, help them see the issue, and then let them figure out how to solve it. But I'll be quiet. Thank you.
Representative Feist, any follow-up?
Yeah, the superintendents, school administrators, school staff, teachers that I've spoken with have all been very supportive of this legislation and think that it makes sense. So that's the only feedback that I've received directly from schools, and so I believe that this will be welcome funding for a need that students have.
Thank you. We've got Representative, sorry, we keep adding more here. Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Representative Feist. The way I read the language here is that the products are required in, it says must be available in restrooms. So it's required in every restroom used by students, all students, both genders. And I would think that would include things like, porta potties out on the restrooms, out on the track. Am I reading this correctly? And is that the intent, that every single restroom possibly used by a student would need to have this stocked?
Representative Feist.
Yep, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. I'm just trying to find the exact line. Oh, here, I found it. So it's available in restrooms used by students grades 4 through 12. So in restrooms, I would assume that would not be, porta potties. It would be restrooms, so within the schools. That is what is anticipated. And we do have another hearing next week. And if you feel like language is necessary to clarify that it's in like traditional bathrooms, not porta potties or other random places that students might go to the bathroom outside of school, I'd be open to that language.
Representative Anderson.
Thank you, Representative. I would be willing to work with you to clarify, because the strict reading of this would be even a porta potty on the track. So,
Great,
I'll be in touch. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll add Representative Bakeberg, and then we'll go to Krusha and Clardy, and then we're going to move on. Representative Bakeberg.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Representative Feist. I just have to say that I've had a number of conversations with fellow administrators, and there's great concern about this. We have great compassion for our female students and want to provide those resources, and frankly, are already doing that in a way that fits our district. So there's great concern with the administrators that I've talked to. And I shared early on, one of the reasons that frankly I'm here is because of mandates being forced on schools that don't fully understand the scope of what's going to happen. So we can talk more about the fiscal impact. We're still waiting for the fiscal note. I appreciate the fiscal contribution of the $2, but in talking with superintendents and talking with principals, that $2 will not be enough. And then taking it further, there's great concern that, frankly, this table knows better than a building principal on how to run their building, and that's a significant concern for me. So, Representative Feist, I would offer that I would love to work and to come up with a solution on the full fiscal impact on this, so.
Representative Feist.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for the question. I do feel fairly confident, and just to, I guess I mentioned it briefly, but so the way we came up with this number again is we looked at the number of students that we expected would need these products. We looked at how often they would need them in school, given that they aren't in school all year round. We looked at the fact that schools would be able to buy these products in bulk, and that actually changed the amount from like 19 million to like 8 million or something. It like dramatically decreased it just because schools have like a purchasing power that's different than individuals. And then again, we looked at students who we thought would probably need these products, and that's not all students who use them. It's basically students on free and reduced lunch are most likely to be the ones who would need these products. And so that was how we came up with the amount. And I do believe it is an informed number. I'm happy to hear from you if you want to add more money. I'm DFLer, we're happy to give more money to the schools. But I do want to make sure it's the right amount. And so if you have input on that, I'm happy to connect.
Thank you, Representative. Now we're going to move on to Representative Kresha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm wondering, you've mentioned conversations with superintendents. Is there any of the school groups that would come up? I know we have a number of them here. I'd just love to have a conversation with whoever's willing to come up.
Representative Kresha, maybe we can reach out to them to see if they want to come testify when we have the fiscal note in front of us. Would that work?
Sure. That would
Give
be
them a
fine.
little bit of time to regroup.
Thank you. And so I'll just preview, I'm not looking for a grill here. The biological dignity of this, I think we all agree on. There's no question there. I think what you've heard as well is the need to do this. Schools are already aware of it. Every school I've talked to, they understand the importance of this. There isn't a single school that I've talked to that said, nope, we're not doing this. And they've had the conversations, and we've heard testimony that schools are doing this on their own. And so I applaud the advocacy. I applaud, like I said, bringing this issue up. Where I think we have an ability to actually get to a compromise or get to a better spot is, and what I'll ask the school groups, and since we have this, I'll ask you to come out and testify, because one of the things you said was, Representative Feist, you said, we would just provide the money if I knew all the schools were gonna do this. Well, from what I've heard, all the schools are gonna do this. If we don't believe that, then I want to hear from the school groups that are going to tell me they're not going to do this. Because if we have that level of distrust, we have a bigger problem than what we have here. And so Representative Feist, I mean, if we feel like, because I will bet you if we get the school groups up here and we say to them, we will provide, or the funding will be available, will you solve this? The answer unequivocally will be yes. I'm convinced of that. If not, then we have bigger issues with our schools. That we don't trust our administrators, we don't trust our teachers, and I don't think we're there. And let's not set that scenario up. I mean, a couple of things that I think through as a former working in schools and areas, and Representative Feist, you mentioned, and I'll tell you, this is one of the concerns is, one representative mentioned, hey, let's get a bill, or let's get an amendment that narrows the scope of where these products should be. I think that's the wrong thing to do. I think schools should figure that out. As a former track coach, when we were outside or when the Phi Ed teachers are out there are bathrooms and porta potties out there that kids need access to. You don't just have this emergency when you're sitting in math class. You have it, because I've been there, you have it at the starting line of the track. And to say, no, we're not gonna do porta potty. I mean, so what we are overdoing here is we're over managing this. When I believe the compromised position, Representative Feist, and you would get unequivocal probably support, is just to remove the mandate and allow the funding. Now, if we can't because by putting the mandate, what we're essentially saying is, we don't trust the schools to do that. And if that's where we are, that's a bigger problem than what this bill does. So, Representative Feist, that's what I would offer up. We're gonna have some testimony next week. I'll put the school groups on notice that, yes, I will be asking you to come up and talk about how you're gonna implement this, how you're gonna deal with, if you're forced to put dispensers in, the damage that will occur. We saw TikTok videos where kids did horrible things with toilets. That costs money. And the question that I'm gonna wanna know from the school groups is, if a simple back of the envelope math, a $1,000 school district, $2 per student, that's $2,000. That, on average, is 15 bathrooms that will cost about $200 per dispenser. You're already behind the 8 ball on the money. And where's the money coming from? Well, according to this, it's coming from the general ed revenue, which is coming out of other areas. So, for lack of better terms, we are now creating a menstrual products cross-subsidy. If that's not the case, school districts, come tell me. Please come testify and say, we're fine with the mandate, and then we'll be fine with mandates across the board. If that's where you are, please signal that so we know how to properly work on a bill for down the road. So, Representative Feist, again, and to all the testifiers, amazing job. I applaud the biological dignity. I applaud bringing this to the focus. I don't think we are going to solve it as well as the folks that are working. To all the advocates, go to your school boards, go to your superintendents, and we'll support you with the funding.
Representative
No further
Feist, brief follow-up, then I'm going to go to Representative Clardy, then we're going to move on.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a question and then some follow-up. My question to Representative Grisha is your proposal that we add $2 on the formula and then we let schools use that $2 per pupil for period products?
Representative Grisha.
Madam Chair and Representative Feist, thank you. My proposal is you are going to be putting a funding bill together. I think you should, as part of that, make sure there's enough funding, and then there's a strong indication, and MDE can do that. They send out weekly notes that this should be covered. All the schools know this. What the school's problem is, they have so many constraints of so many other things. And I'll be honest, you mentioned buying in bulk. Every superintendent I talk to, and I have some very close people to this, my 4 daughters and my wife in my ear, and they've all said, if you buy in bulk and it's bad quality products, we're not using them. Their exact words, they don't work, they hurt, and conversations so what I'm worried about, I will tell you my fear. I'm worried you're gonna put a mandate on the schools where they're gonna buy in bulk that's not gonna be accessible because dispensers are gonna get knocked down and broken, and they're gonna buy this like paper products, which is the lowest quality, and we haven't actually solved the problem, which is the biological dignity that these students are asking for. That's what I'm worried about. When it becomes a big thing, it becomes lesser quality.
Representative Feist quickly, and then Representative Clardy.
Quickly, I have so much to say. Thank you. First of all, in response, just to clarify, we are not requiring dispensers. Dispensers they can be vandalized. They also are very expensive, like really expensive. And the schools that have done this have generally just provided baskets. And in those schools, we've just seen really positive results that, they haven't been vandalized, that they've been available for students as they've needed them and have been able to be kept stocked. I trust schools want to do what's right by our students, but the fact is that they are not providing these products now. Even though students have been rising up across the state of Minnesota asking for these products, this is not a new issue, it just happens to be new to me as of the last year and a half. And so while I love working with our schools and I support them, they have not shown that they're willing to do this. And as I've said, this is a necessity and a human right. And we do not want schools to have to choose between all of the many very important things that they invest their dollars in, mental health supports, literacy investments. We want them to be able to do it all, and we want students to be there to learn, and they need these period products in order to be there.
Thank you. Representative Clardy.
Thank you, Chair Yukim. Thank you, Rep. Feist. I guess I'm approaching this as a teacher. I've been teaching for 27 years. I've been on the school board. I'm a mom. With all those components, I think that it's not just a poverty issue. I've worked in schools of poverty. I've been in the school board of, a very decent school district that has not had poverty issues. But some of our legislators have mentioned literacy. That is key. So if you look at a student missing school, 27 days, at least 27 days a year, it could have an effect on graduation rates. It could have an effect on just their ability to be able to graduate. So I think that the testifiers here today, in person, and the ones online, they're the experts. they're living the reality right now. They're talking boldly from their heart and also just from their pure experience. So I think we need to definitely consider the literacy that was mentioned. I'm a literacy expert. I've been teaching specifically literacy. And if my kids miss 3 days a month, it affects them at some point in their education. So I just thank you for bringing this bill. I'm supporting it 100%.
Thank you, Representative Clardy, and thank you, Representative Feist. I think we're just going to lay this bill over, and you'll have following comments when we bring this up next week, and we're going to move on. So,
Madam Chair, just a very quick technical, we don't have the bill in front of us, we can't actually lay it over.
I did move it in
correct?
front of us, Representative Creasy.
Okay, so if we moved it and we had an author's amendment, did we,
We did not take up the.
so we're
author's
not doing it
amendment.
right now?
We'll do that next week.
Thank you, just want to
Yep.
make sure.
Thank you, Representative Creasy. With that, thank you, Representative Feist. Next up, we have Representative Berg with House File 203. If you want to go ahead and have some of your testifiers come up with you, it might save us time. We have Patty Haish, Emily Dirksen, and then in the wings would be Cameron Cox. So with that, the chair will move House File 203 before the committee. Representative Berg, proceed.
Thank you so much, Madam Chair. I'm Representative Kayla Berg. I represent 55B, which is most of Burnsville. So this is going to be an easy bill for you today. It had bipartisan support. Every single one of the education policy members signed on to it. It's such a great program, so I'm really excited to present it today. So House File 203, which would appropriate $50,000 for fiscal year 2024 for the Minnesota Association of Alternative Programs, MAP STARS program. Alternative programs help students who are at risk for not graduating. These students are usually deficient in academic skills and behind in credits. Oftentimes, these students are homeless, have suffered physical, emotional, or sexual abuse, are pregnant, have been bullied, have problems with substance abuse, and sometimes have limited English proficiency. Alternative programs give them an option to pursue graduation with additional support and guidance. Since 1993, the MAP STARS program has provided students in alternative programs the opportunity to develop employment, academic, and social skills. The STARS acronym stands for Success, Teamwork, Achievement, Recognition, and Self-Esteem. MAP STARS was created to help motivate those students in alternative programs to overcome limitations, have fulfilling academic and social experiences, and make informed career choices. With me today, I have Patty Haish, MAP STARS Chair, and Emily Dirksen, MAP STARS Advisor at the Minnesota Valley Area Learning Center in Montevideo, who will also share a little more about the program. We are all honored to have several MAP STARS here today to answer any questions. I know this committee will hear from students later this week, and MAP STARS will be part of the presentation. I'm going to turn it over to my testifiers.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
My name is Patty Haish. I'm a retired principal from the Catholic Bena School District. I've been involved with MAP STARS since it began, but since retiring, I've been the MAP STARS Chair. I've been privileged to do that because to me, it's a very important piece of what MAP does. With me today is some other advisors. And we have 3 MAP STARS officers. They were elected by their peers at our fall leadership conference, and then they represent the alternative schools that belong to MAP. Most of what I was going to say, Representative Berg has already established, so let me just fumble with it for a little bit longer. STARS was modeled after DECA, which aligns with the best workforce legislation. And in terms of settings, it's area learning centers, it's alternative programs, it's remedial programs, some drug treatment schools. There's a variety. Charter schools, one of the people that's here today is the director of Paladin, just down the road a piece in Coon Rapids. So I want you to understand that MAP represents a variety of alternative settings. It's not just one field. We created STARS for a specific purpose of motivating students to overcome the limitations that they experience. It's a total volunteer organization. The staff really believe firmly in what it does for our students. They do an awful lot with providing opportunities for them to realize what kinds of careers are available for them, and also to just build life skills. Our spring conference is the biggest conference. We do 3 statewide events. In the spring is where students come and they demonstrate what it is that they have learned through the school year. And some of the examples of events, there's 16 different ones: public speaking, employment interview. Who doesn't need to know how to do an employment interview? I mean, we're zeroing in on specific things for their vocational training for life after high school. And so it's been really a wonderful experience for me to see that our students shine. And that's, the last S is self-esteem. And to me, that's the critical piece. That almost should be number 1 in my mind, but I didn't create that. And we're requesting the funds to make STARS more available statewide. We're really after equitable access. None of the staff that participate in it are being paid. The money will not go for salaries. It's going directly to help schools, because a lot of our programs are small and they don't have, they struggle to allocate the resources that we do have to sponsor students. And so this is earmarked for students to participate and eventually help with boosting our graduation rates. So thank you for the opportunity to be heard today. And I'll turn it over to Emily.
Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
My name is Emily Dirksen. I am a language arts teacher at Minnesota Valley Area Learning Center. I've been a teacher there for 18 years, and I started our MAPsters program about 15 years ago there. I was at a MAP conference and heard about it and was really excited about what its message was and what it was promoting for our students. So I started at our school. We started really small. We've now grown to be able to have it as an elective class. So I have a class all year long for our students. Throughout that class, we've been able to do some partnerships with the local kindergarten class, which again kind of helps to build the bridges between the traditional ed and the alternative ed, getting our students out there that they are good kids and they can do good things and they can help out in those regular schools as well. We do some student council type activities in our building as well, whereas they plan our homecoming, we did a Thanksgiving meal at Thanksgiving time, like a family meal for everyone. But of course, as Patty alluded to, the spring conference is kind of our biggest thing that we work on these events all year long. So we always do an annual community service project at our school. Every fall, we raise funds for a different cause. One of our favorites is to adopt a local family at Christmas time and purchase Christmas gifts for them. And then after we do that, we put a project together and then we present that as one of our projects at the spring conference. She mentioned employment interview. We're able to partner with our local workforce center and have students practice some mock interviews so then they can go and compete in the spring with that as well. Public speaking, they talk about their educational journey, so getting them up and speaking in front of people as well. And then another favorite that we do is the job manual. So students research a job that they currently have. They research the history of the company, what they do at their job, and then also future careers that they could do. So a lot of skill building for things in the future. Of course, the biggest thing that I love about MAPstars is seeing the growth in our students. These students have had really difficult lives, and for them to see a success through an organization like this has been really great through my years of working with MAPstars. We are in Montevideo, and I don't think there's another school that has a MapStars program within probably an hour and a half of our school. So it would be really cool to be able to see some of the other alternative programs in Southwest Minnesota be able to participate in STARS. Maybe we can host a regional event. That was something that we had way back when I started 15 years ago with MapStars, but because of funding, schools haven't been able to send to more than maybe just one conference a year. So for our students, it's neat for them to see students like them, like ones that have been through similar experiences, who have maybe had some similar struggles. So going to conferences like this really help them to see that there's others that they can maybe form relationships with later on down the road. I've been fortunate enough to have some student officers. I do have one this year. He was not able to attend today, but seeing those students rise to that leadership ability is really great. A couple of success stories, my favorite ones to tell. A couple of students that I had in MapStars. One student, his first day in our building, could not even get out of his car. He was so anxious to attend our school. And by the time that he was graduated as a senior, he was in our MapStars program. He had earned some plaques at our spring conference and was like a completely different kid in our MapStars program, was able to help him grow through that. Another student who was a MapStars officer, she is now at Bemidji State, majoring in nursing, just finished her first semester there, is doing wonderfully. When she started at our school, her depression was so bad that she couldn't even attend on a regular basis. So I truly, firmly believe MapStars is my favorite thing about our school, and I would love to see other students and be able to participate through the funding that was offered through this bill. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony and both your work. The public's been asked to put out that public can testify, and we did have somebody sign up, a student, Cameron Cox. Could you please approach the table and state your name for the record? Just go ahead and have a seat. Thank you for being here today. Go ahead.
Hi, I'm Cameron Cox, and I am a sophomore at Austin Alternative Learning Center. This is my second year in MapStars, as I participated in both fall and spring events last year and participated in the fall conference this year, where me and the rest of the officers were elected. Before MapStars, I was in traditional schooling. My experience wasn't as good. Teachers showed how they never cared about my grades and never taught me the way I needed to. I felt like I was hopeless as I got bad grades. I felt like I was useless. Till I joined MapStars. When I joined MapStars, I got better grades and I felt like I belonged. It showed that I can step out of boundaries and feel like we won't be judged for being different. Socially, being different is bad, and that shows in schools with people staying silent because they don't want to say something wrong and they feel bad about themselves, or they feel like the people will pick on them for not getting the questions right. Same goes to socially awkward people because they can't express themselves without thinking that they are different than others. MapStars shows that you can take a sledgehammer and break down that stone barrier. There's no need to feel bad that you're different or what people refer to as different. With this bill, I think this bill is important because it helps people who can't participate because of money issues. People who have money problems will have their prices lowered so they can participate in these experiences. In my personal experience with money issues, I live with my mom, who is a single mother on disability. It's hard for us to get by since we don't have a lot of money, since my mom can't get a job. We even need food stamps for food, so we can use the money for bills, which we can barely pay. With child support, it helps a little bit, but not enough. With this bill, it won't only help me, but others with funding situations. MapStars is important to alternative learning because people feel like they belong, that they can fit in. The money that MapStars will get will not be payment to any MapStars advisors. This money will be used to help and fund MapStars as well as people who want to experience the opportunity we give. Thank you.
Thank you so much. With that, we're going to move to member questions, and after that, we'll have your final comments.
Madam Chair, I believe we
Yes.
have another testifier, if we may.
If you, Bob,
Just kidding.
oh, so, okay. Sorry, so we're going to move to member questions, and Representative Bennett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And just a question, it sounds like a wonderful program. I just am wondering, I think it's really important to measure effectiveness, and do you have, some goals you've set? What kind of measurement have you used to determine if you've reached those goals, and do you have things you could share with us in that way as to the success of your program?
Chair Hush, maybe you have that information, or we could get it to the members, but how long has MapStars been around, and maybe
30
Tom?
years.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you, Chair Hush.
1999, yeah, 30 years.
Thank you. Maybe briefly touch on some of the ways that you measure success.
Well, as we've talked about, the spring conference is really where things come to fruition. It's like a competition. There's 16 different events. They are judged by volunteer judges, and the students get a grade per se, and they can earn a plaque, a ribbon, a certificate with what things that they've done, that sort of stuff. But most of it is done at their schools in terms of, we as a MapStars do not evaluate students. So I haven't tracked that, but I don't know if anyone else has some ideas. Liza, do you?
So members, we have to make sure that we're at the table when you testify. So maybe the one question I could quickly ask then, we've talked about this being a form of DECA just for our ALCs, so that's kind of part of it. But we have overview that we're supposed to get to by 11:45. So we're going to move on to following questions. Representative Bennett, did you have a quick follow-up before we go to Representative Berg and then Representative Krisha?
Thanks, Madam Chair. Just a suggestion that you might gather data that the school gets, for example, in academic progress and measurement before the MAPS program, that student after the MAPS program, or if it's a social measurement. But I think it's important to measure what is this doing for the student. Anecdotal is great, but I think some data would be helpful as well. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Representative Berg, did you? No. Okay. Representative Krisha.
Thank you. Very quickly, and Representative Berg, thanks for the bill. My question is actually to you, young man, to Austin. Those of us that have been through shared experiences know, and I feel you. I've been there. You're articulate. I love the suit. I love the tie. You'll be just fine.
Thank you. Representative Perez-Vega.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just want to give thanks to this young man who gave his testimony today as a youth worker who's worked with several students that deserve alternative learning. You are the highlight of this work. So muchas gracias. Thank you for giving your testimony, and keep up the good work, all right? Thanks.
Thank you. With that, Representative Berg, final comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Oh, shoot, I'm sorry.
You can do it.
Some of you in this room know how appreciative I am for alternative programs. You're going to hear it again when I come back before you at the end of the month with another bill. But I really appreciate the comments and the support from everyone in this room. I do want to say, this is your data, right here. This is your data. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Berg. With that, the chair lays over House File 203 for possible inclusion in the Education Finance Bill. Members, we're going to quickly move on to our library overview. So the Director of State Library Services is here to give us a quick presentation. State Library Services has a part in our fiscal area, so I just want folks to have the information. Once you get settled, please state your name for the record and proceed. Thank you. Please state your name for the record and proceed.
Good morning. My name is Tamara Lee, and I'm the Director of State Library Services and Expanded Learning Opportunities for the Minnesota Department of Education. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, committee members, for inviting State Library Services and MDE out today to give you an overview of libraries in Minnesota. This slide highlights the 10 commitments to equity that guides the work of State Library Services and the Minnesota Department of Education. Freedom of information is fundamental to the American way of life, and it sets us apart from many countries. Libraries and librarians are committed to preserving the freedom to read, to enhance learning, and to ensure access to information for all. Minnesota libraries are no different. We hold on to these ideologies as well, and we are committed to providing equitable and innovative access to all Minnesotans. We're committed to helping children and adults develop the skills that they need to survive and thrive in this global economy and this new information society. We recognize that literacy and digital access are integral to keeping people current and able to grow and meet their dreams. Minnesota libraries level a playing field. We're great democratic institutions. We serve people of every age, income level, location, ethnicity, and physical ability, and provide a full range of information services to every citizen that allows them to live, learn, govern, and work. Minnesota libraries are community anchors. They connect people to information, and they also connect people to people. We're safe havens for kids. We provide story times. We have a unique mix of literacy and leisure. We do homework help, provide assistance to job seekers, offer computer classes to older adults and senior citizens so they can stay engaged. We meet the needs of people that are homebound or that have visual or physical disabilities, people that live in rural areas or even remote areas. And in our efforts to do that, we protect and advocate for everybody's right to read and right to privacy. I just want to point out that every single picture on this slide was taken in a Minnesota library. This is what is happening in Minnesota libraries. I love this picture, or this collection of pictures. There are many types of, I thought I would give an overview of libraries in Minnesota in case you didn't know how they worked. I actually learned a lot becoming the state library director a little over a year ago. So I thought I'd share that with all of you. There are many types of libraries in Minnesota, including 356 public libraries, 982 school libraries, 90 academic libraries, 140 special libraries, 11 tribal libraries, and 8 bookmobiles. Libraries are supported by government entities like the Governor's Office, the Minnesota Office of the Governor, Department of Education by providing services through State Library Services, and the Institute of Museum and Library Services, which is a federal institution that gives money to all of the libraries in the United States of America. Locally, libraries are supported by regional public library systems, by multi-county, multi-type systems, and our big partner organization is an agency called Minitex. And we're also supported in Minnesota by organizations like the Minnesota Library Association, the American Library Association, and the chief officers of state library agencies. Let's talk about our regional systems. For over 50 years, we've had a system of regional library systems in Minnesota, and they are overseen by the Council of Regional Public Library System Administrators, or CRPSLA is how they refer to themselves, and how I refer to them. They make it possible to have even the smallest library in Minnesota be able to offer all of the same services and access to information, databases, things like that, that big libraries in more metropolitan areas do. They create a maximum efficiency among public libraries by working together. Minnesota libraries bring all of these services to every resident in the state, and this is really an important part of how we are able to do that. The 12 library systems blanket the state. Maybe you'll see your own library system. And there, some of them are consolidated, which means that they have a central hub and branches, and others are independent members or part of federated systems. Again, 356 public library locations with 8 bookmobiles, and there's a library, at least one library in every county. There are 7 multi-type or multi-county multi-type library systems in Minnesota, and they function as an intermediary between different types of libraries. We do put a lot of emphasis on public library systems. I think public library systems public library systems provide the most access for the most Minnesotans, but there are, as I stated before, many different types, and the lovely thing about multi-types are that they provide shared resources between different types. So it could be school libraries working with a public library program, it could be academic libraries working with a special library, it could be any sort of combination. So they support the sharing of resources and programming and access between different types, which is really apparent when we're looking at like public libraries and school libraries. It works really well overall, and it is a great way to connect us. I'm not going to read all of these, but I will highlight some of the things on this list. 1 in 2 Minnesotans have a library card, which is lovely, and we would like to increase that number. Minnesotans have access to over 4,800 computers and mobile devices at libraries. During COVID, hotspots and hotspot lending was big and helped students and families and adults and job seekers meet their needs during COVID and continue to do so. We provide services, 70% of all of our public libraries provide services to organizations that serve senior citizens, but 100% of our public libraries provide services to senior citizens and are increasing things like access to telehealth and things like that for seniors and people that are older adults or maybe shut-ins. 95% of Minnesota public libraries participate in interlibrary loan through Minitex. Again, that's a big partner agency that we work with. With the system, library patrons can request books, journal articles, and audiovisual materials from all types of libraries. So again, if you have a public library card, but you need material or access to a database that is held by a university library, Minitex makes that possible for us. For everyone to be able to access that. Total materials circulation in 2021 is 43 million. We don't have the numbers yet. We haven't started our public library data collection, but anecdotally from meeting with library system directors across the state, there has been a great resurgence post-COVID for community members to want to go back to the library in person and for library programming. All Minnesotans have access to electronic resources and ebooks through eBooks Minnesota and over 57 research tools through eLibrary Minnesota. I love this number. 465,000 people attended the almost 24,000 library programs offered by libraries in 2021. 10,000 of those were in-person programs for kids. Again, anecdotally, we keep hearing that there's a request for more services and safer buildings. And 4,000 of those were recorded programs. Thought I would move on and explain what State Library Services does. State Library Services is a unit of the Libraries and Expanded Learning Opportunities Division. It is in the Office of Teaching and Learning under the umbrella of the Minnesota Department of Education. Our responsibilities, according to Minnesota Statute 2021, Section 134.31, fall into 5 categories. Library service, which is basically the provision of library services to all Minnesotans. Advice and instruction, so the development, organization, administration, and maintenance of libraries and all library types in Minnesota. To provide library resources, basically to facilitate the sharing of information and resources between library types and library systems, to collect public library statistics for you and others that need them to help you make decisions, and to provide services to people with visual and physical disabilities. We do that through the Minnesota Braille and Talking Book Library in collaboration with the National Library Service. Things that we do in state library services are, these are just a few things, so don't think that we only do these few things. A few things that we do are to administer state aid, state grants, and federal aid to public libraries, coordinate learning and networking opportunities for library staff, collect public library usage data, and manage the Minnesota Braille and Talking Book Library. Things that we don't do, but that we support through grant making and the administration of state funding are the management of public library systems. Again, that's overseen by the Council on Regional Public Library System administration, and maintain a statewide library catalog, coordinate interlibrary delivery, and provide state access to databases and ebook collections. A lot of those services are provided by Minitex and our electronic library resources. The Institute for Museum and Library Services requires that state library services and MDE provide them with a 5-year plan, and we are on our last year of our previous 5-year plan. And so if you were interested in what we were actually doing, these are just a few things. We're tying up our last 5-year plan. Some of those goals were to promote barrier-free access, and ways that things that we're working on to do that are programs and grants that facilitate school readiness, early literacy support, especially with our public libraries, as they do a lot of heavy lifting around early literacy even before kids get into the school system. And welcoming libraries program, which are services to immigrant and refugee populations, just to name 2 under that goal. We continue to contribute to the world's best workforce. Our Career Force Corners initiative is in its 2nd year, and it's on fire. Over 40% of our libraries are participating in that, and it is a partnership with DEED and Workforce to help job seekers get access to the skills and tools that they need to be employed. Facilitating digital equity and literacy. We are working with DEED and other agencies on digital equity and broadband issues, because again, they underpin a lot of the work that we do to be able to do like the Career Force initiative and things like that. So, and then the responding to diverse community needs, Project Ready, and other training that is either national or homegrown that helps us make sure that we are meeting the needs of every single Minnesotan. And last but not least, another project around embedding evaluation, so we can help increase the regard for libraries among decision makers like you. We want to make sure that we're collecting the information that you need to make decisions and to decide the value of libraries in Minnesota. So that's a really important activity for us. Those are the things that we're working on now, and we'll continue to obviously work on initiatives that are similar. But October 1st, 2023 starts our new 5-year plan for the Institute of Museum and Library Services. I'd be happy to send you our 5-year plans. It's also on our website and on the Institute of Museum and Library Services website if you'd like to see that. And the things that we will start working on, or we're setting the stage right now to start working on, are to build coalitions to increase collective impact, partnering for reimagined success, and changing the narrative to showcase libraries' contributions to thriving communities. I can't stress enough, and you might be like, oh, she loves libraries. Obviously, I do love libraries. Libraries are important, and I know, you know, you meet anybody on the street and ask them what they think about the libraries, and they love libraries, even if they don't really understand the plethora of services that they get from them. And I'm hoping that that all of you can see the importance. If you have any trouble understanding anything that we do, please don't hesitate to ask. Always happy to answer. Again, Madam Chair, committee members, thank you for letting me come out and talk to you today.
Thank you, Director Lee, and I'm sorry that we were a little rushed at the end. Regional libraries provide so many more services beyond books, so just want to thank you for that. Members, we have about 5 minutes. I asked for extended time for any questions you may have, but also note that in your packets are the slides from Director Lee and our nonpartisan staff as well on the fiscal impact sides of our library system. Members, any questions? Seeing none, with that, tomorrow we will come back and hear from our students, one of the most important voices we can have at the table. We are adjourned.